confirming everything Camden had said about me. No, we must do things differently, more deliberate. I knew the Lake Charles business community like the back of my hand. 43 years in the oil industry had not gone to waste. I had connections, reputation, credibility, and I was going to use them to show Camden Price's true colors, not just to Olivia, but to anyone who thought he was a successful businessman. I woke up this morning with a clear head and a clear plan of action. The first thing I did was call the bank and actually cancel the honeymoon payments. It wasn't an act of revenge. It was just common sense. Why pay for a luxury vacation for a man who blatantly despises you and plans to house your money? Mr. Landry, are you sure? The bank clerk interjected. The amount is quite substantial and the payments have already been authorized. Absolutely sure, I answered firmly. There had been a change in family circumstances. Next, I called my old friend Howard Baker, former CTO and current board member of Kinjun Energy. Howard, we need to meet tonight if possible. Is something wrong? Hector? There was concern in his voice. Yes, and it's not just me. We'll talk when we meet. We agreed to meet at noon at the country club where veterans of the oil industry regularly gathered. I arrived early and took a table in the far corner off the terrace, which overlooked the golf course. Howard showed up at exactly the right time. A tall, trim man in his 70s with a tanned face and shrewd eyes. We'd known each other for more than 4 decades, started Gulf Petroleum together, lived through the oil crisis of the 70s and the transformation of the industry in the 2000 years. You look lassy, old man, he said, sitting down across from me. Didn't the wedding go so smoothly? I told him briefly what had happened yesterday, not hiding either the humiliation of Camden's humiliation or the pain of my daughter's betrayal. Bastard! Howard shook his head when I was done. What do you plan to do? Show his true colors. I answered, not just to Olivia, but to everyone who thinks he's a successful professional, and I need your help. Howard looked at me carefully. Hector, you're not going to do anything illegal, are you? I value our friendship, but nothing like that. I shook my head. Just truth. Camden Price has built his career on lying, manipulating, and using other people. I just wanted to be known. Howard hesitated, drumming his fingers in the table. Axiom marketing, you say? He finally said, that's a funny coincidence. They're doing a big project with Kinjun Energy right now. Brand redesign, new marketing strategy, digital transformation, the whole package, a multi-million-dollar contract. I felt a spark of hope ignite inside. And Camden Price is leading this project. Yes, he's the development director and leads all negotiations with our management team. He's a very persuasive young man, I must admit. Promises of a gold mine. What if I told you there was nothing behind those promises? I leaned forward, that he's misappropriating his subordinates' ideas, framing his colleagues, and creating a toxic team environment. Those are serious allegations, Hector. Do you have proof? I pulled Allison Burke's business card out of my pocket and put it on the table. Give her a call. She's a managing partner at Meridian Consulting. They handled crisis management at Axiom. After several key employees left, she'd tell you about Camden Price's modus operandi. Howard took the business card and looked at it thoughtfully. Let's say you're right. What do you suggest? Organize a meeting. The board of directors of Kinjun Energy and representatives of Axiom. I'll come in as a consultant on your side. Leave the rest to me. Hector, you do realize that if you're wrong, there could be serious consequences, not just for Camden, but for you as well. I nodded. I'm fully aware of that. But I'm not wrong. Howard looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. Decisively. Good. I trust your judgment. Besides, hesitated slightly. If this guy is really what you say he is, Kinjun will benefit by withdrawing his services. We discussed the details, and 2 days later a meeting was scheduled. In that time, I had time to contact Allison Burke, explain the situation, and get more information from her about Camden's modus operandi. She was surprised by my call, but after hearing about the public humiliation at the wedding, she agreed to help. I don't have any direct evidence of his impropriety, she said. Booty can give you contacts of people who have been affected by his actions, if they're willing to talk, of course. To my surprise, several former Axiom employees were eager to share their stories about working with Camden Price. Especially valuable was the story of Jason Morgan, a former creative director whose rebranding concept for a major pharmaceutical company was appropriated by Camden. I have all the sketches, presentations, dates, Jason said. I can prove that the idea was mine and that Price first rejected it and then presented it as his own. The meeting washed at the headquarters of Kinjun Energy, a modern glass and concrete building in downtown Lake Charles. Howard introduced me as an experienced strategic development consultant, which was no great exaggeration given my background in the oil industry. Camden showed up accompanied by 2 young employees carrying file folders and laptops. He was dressed in an impeccable suit and exuded the confidence of a man accustomed to getting what he wanted. When he saw me, he froze for a moment and then his face took on an expression of professional courtesy. "Mr. Landry, what a surprise," he said, extending his hand. "I didn't know you were consulting for Kinjun Energy." I shook his hand, feeling anger boiling up inside, but outwardly remaining completely calm. "Mr. Price, small world, isn't it?" The meeting began with Camden's presentation, the rebranding strategy for Kinjun. He spoke confidently, using buzzwords and promising a revolutionary approach to brand positioning. The board listened attentively, asking questions which Camden answered smoothly and persuasively. When the presentation was over, Howard looked at me and nodded. My exit. "Impressive presentation, Mr. Price," I began, "especially the concept of green progress. Very relevant to an oil company in today's realities." Camden smiled, clearly flattered. "Thank you, Mr. Landry. It really is a key element of our strategy. And when did you develop it?" I asked innocently. "It's the result of months of work by our team," he replied, tensing slightly. "We've done extensive market research, competitor analysis." "That's strange." I pulled a few sheets of paper out of the folder because I'd seen an almost identical concept presented by Jason Morgan 6 months ago, right down to the use of the same key phrases and visual metaphors. There was silence in the room. Camden turned pale but quickly pulled himself together. "Jason Morgan was fired from Axiom for incompetence," he said coldly, "and his ideas were rejected as being out of line with the market." "Really?" I looked at the board members. "Then why is your current client Biopharma using a strategy developed by Morgan but presented by you as your original solution?" I put some more documents on the table. A comparative analysis of Morgan's concept in Biopharma's current marketing campaign. "And this is not an isolated incident," I continued. "Over the past 3 years, at least 5 Axiom employees have quit or been fired after their ideas were appropriated by you, Emily Chen, Marcus Johnston, Lauren Peterson." With each name, Camden lost his composure more and more. His aides looked around in confusion, not knowing how to react. "These are absurd accusations," he finally said. "You have no proof." "I have written testimony from all the people mentioned," I replied calmly. "I also have Meridian Consulting's report on the reasons for the high turnover in your department, reasons that boil down to a toxic management style and appropriation of other people's ideas." One of the board members, an older man with a shrewd eye, leaned forward. "Mr. Landry, these allegations are very serious. Do you realize that they could have legal ramifications? I understand completely, I nodded, and am prepared to answer for every word I say. What's more, I looked directly at Camden. I know firsthand the methods by which Mr. Price achieves his goals. He doesn't shy away from humiliating people, manipulating and lying if it serves his interests. This is a personal vendetta, Camden suddenly shouted, losing his temper. This man is me wife's father, and we had a conflict at the wedding. He's trying to take revenge on me by ruining my career. Indeed, Mr. Price is married to my daughter, I confirmed. And yes, there was an incident at the wedding. You publicly humiliated me and ordered me out. But if it were just that, I wouldn't jeopardize the reputation of a company I've worked for over 40 years and people I respect. I nodded toward Howard and the other board members. I'm here because I feel it's my duty to warn my longtime colleagues about a man who could damage their business. Howard coughed. I think we should take a break and discuss the situation, he said, addressing the board. Mr. Price, we'll get back to you later. Camden tried to object, but the chairman raised his hand to stop him. We will review all the materials provided and make a decision. For now, please leave us alone. When Camden and his assistants left, a heavy silence hung in the room. Finally, one of the directors, whom I didn't know, turned to me. Mr. Landry, do you realize that if your accusations are not confirmed, Axiom may sue Kinjun for breach of contract? My accusations will prove true, I replied confidently. Call Meridian Consulting. Talk to Allison Burke. Contact Jason Morgan and other former Axiom employees. Do your own investigation. I'm sure you'll find a lot more than I could gather in a few days. Howard backed me up. I've known Hector for 40 years. If he says he can back up what he says, then he can. The board of directors met for over an hour. I was asked to wait in a neighboring office. I sat there looking out at the view of Lake Charles and thinking about how Olivia would react when she learned of my actions. Would she be angry? Will she think I betrayed her? Or would she finally see the true face of her husband? Finally, I was invited back into the conference room. Howard met me at the door and said quietly, "They believed you, Hector. Kinjun is breaking the contract with Axiom." I nodded, feeling not triumph but rather sad satisfaction. This was not a victory, but a necessity I could not ignore. The chairman of the board, a gay-haired man with an authoritative face, formally informed me of the decision. "Mr. Landry, we thank you for the information you have provided. We have contacted some of the sources you mentioned and have received confirmation of your words. Kinjun Energy cannot work with a company whose practices raise such serious ethical questions. The contract with Axiom Marketing will be terminated." I thanked the board and left the building feeling a strange emptiness inside. I had done what I thought was right, but it didn't bring relief. The hardest part lay ahead, facing the consequences of my actions. The wait was not long. That evening, as I sat in my office looking through our old photos, the phone rang. Olivia. I took a deep breath and answered, "Daddy, what have you done?" Her voice shook with anger and tears. "Did you know that Kinjun Energy broke the contract with Axiom? It was Camden's biggest project." "I know," I replied calmly. "I was at that meeting." "You what?" She seemed speechless. "Did you do it on purpose? Out of revenge?" "Not out of revenge, Olivia. Out of justice. I was just telling the truth about your husband's modus operandi, how he misappropriates ideas, how he creates a toxic atmosphere on the team." "That's Allie," she exclaimed. "Camden is a talented professional. All these people you found are just jealous of his success. And that's why their statements match. And that's why Jason Morgan has proof that Camden stole his concept." I tried to speak calmly but firmly. The Kinjun board of directors wouldn't tear up a multi-million-dollar contract without a good reason. There was silence on the phone. Then I heard muffled sobs. "You ruined his career," Olivia said finally, "and our marriage. He's furious. He's screaming that I should have warned him about your oil connections, that it's my fault for what happened." I closed my eyes, feeling my heart clench. This is the true face of Camden Price Dodd. At the first sign of trouble, he blames it on his wife. "Olivia," I said softly, "don't you see? A man who really loves you would not blame you for his failures, especially if those failures are the result of his own actions." "You don't understand," she whispered. "This was his chance for a promotion. Now, it's over. For a man with real talent and honest methods, one failure wouldn't be the end of a career," I pointed out. "But Camden built his success on lies and manipulation, and such structures fall apart sooner or later." "I can't talk to you right now," Olivia said after a pause. "I need to think and to help Camden deal with this crisis." Of course, I agreed. "But no, that no matter what happens, my door is always open to you." She disconnected without saying goodbye. I put the phone down and sat in silence for a long time, thinking about what I had done. I didn't feel triumph or satisfaction, only the hope that my daughter would now see the true nature of the man she married and the bitterness of realizing how much pain she would have to endure. The 2 weeks after the St. John Energy incident passed. Intense suspense. Olivia hadn't called and I hadn't tried to contact her, knowing she needed time to process what had happened. I learned from mutual friends that internal investigations had begun at Axiom Marketing and Camden had been suspended. I returned to my normal life. Meetings with former colleagues, counseling young engineers, working in the garden, which always brought me comfort. But thoughts of my daughter never left me for a moment. I knew I'd made the right choice in exposing Camden's true nature, but the price off that truth was high. I might have lost Olivia for good. One evening, as I sat on the porch with a book, enjoying the cool breeze off the lake, a car pulled into the driveway, an unfamiliar dark blue sedan. A few seconds later, Olivia stepped out of it. She looked different with it, her usual flawless makeup and designer clothes, simple jeans, shirt, her hair gathered in a careless bun, and her eyes were red from crying. "Hi, Daddy," she said quietly, walking up the veranda steps. "Can I come in?" I nodded silently and let her into the house. We walked into the living room where we had once spent family evenings with Eleanor, playing board games and discussing the day's events. Coffee?" I offered, feeling awkward. We hadn't had a proper conversation in years, and I didn't know how to start now. "Water if you can," she replied, taking a seat on the couch or something stronger. I poured her a glass of water and myself some whiskey. We sat in silence for a few minutes before Olivia finally spoke. "Cam got fired," she said bluntly. "Not just from the St. John project, from Axiom in general. After what happened, they did an internal investigation and found evidence of all the things you were talking about." I remained silent, giving her a chance to speak. "And that's not all," she continued, nervously twirling the glass in her hands. "Turns out he's in debt. Big ones, credit cards, consumer loans, even a few loans from some shady individuals. He kept it from me all this time." Her voice shook and I could see she was struggling to hold back tears. All that luxury, all thousand connections and status things, all on loans he couldn't pay back. He was counting on the bonus from the St. John deal to close at least some of the debts. "I'm sorry, Olivia," I said sincerely. Despite everything that had happened, I didn't want to see my daughter suffer. "Sorry," she looked at him with a bitter grin. "You got what you wanted, Dad. You ruined my marriage just like you promised." "I never promised to ruin your marriage," I said calmly. "I just showed you the true face of the man you married, and he ruined it with his lies, his manipulations, his dishonest ways." She lowered her eyes, recognizing the truth of my words. Do you know what he said when he came home after he was fired? She continued after a pause that it was all my fault, that I should have kept my old man in line, that if I hadn't wet about the expensive wedding and honeymoon, he wouldn't have had to go into so much debt. The tears she'd been holding back finally flowed down her cheeks. He drank for days on end. He'd come home at midnight, reeking of some woman's perfume, and when I asked him about it, he said he was entitled to compensation for all the trouble. I clenched my fists, feeling a wave of anger rising in me. It's one thing to misappropriate someone else's ideas and screw over your coworkers, and quite another to betray and humiliate the woman you supposedly love. Why didn't y'all leave him right away? I asked, trying to make my voice sound non-judgmental. Pride, I guess, she grinned bitterly. I didn't want to admit that you were right, that I was wrong to reject your values and your way of life for this. She took a sip of water and continued. But yesterday, something happened that was the final straw. He hit me. I jumped to my feet. Unable to contain mutrage. He what? Sitting down. She gestured for me to calm down. I'm fine, Dad. It wasn't a punch, more like a slap. We've been arguing about money. I'd learned that he'd withdrawn the last of our joint savings from our joint account. He yelled that I was as worthless as my father and hit me. She raised her head, and in her eyes I saw not only pain but determination. At that moment I realized it was over. I packed the essentials and went to a friend's house. And today I decided to come to you. I sat back in my chair trying to digest what I'd heard. My anger at Camden was mixed with relief that Olivia had finally seen his true colors and bitterness of the humiliation she'd been put through. You did the right thing, I said. No one has the right to lay a hand on you. Never. She nodded, wiping away her tears. I've already talked to a lawyer. The divorce will be complicated because of his debts, but I want a complete breakup. No compromises. That's reasonable, he agreed, if you need help with the legal costs. Actually, she interrupted me, and her voice became a little different, more calculating. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. Dad, I need help, not just with the lawyer, but with a place to live and money for the first time. All my savings went to the damn wedding and to cover some of his debts. Something in her tone alerted me. The sudden practicality after an emotional story. This shift from vulnerability to businesslike. Of course, I'll help you, Olivia, I said gently. You're my daughter, and I'll always be there for you in times of need. Thank you. She smiled slightly. I knew you wouldn't say no, especially since, well, in a way, you're the one who will hasten the demise of our marriage. There it is. Not just asking for help, but trying to use guilt to get more. I don't regret what I did, I said bluntly. Yes, I hastened the inevitable, but better the painful truth know than years of living with a man who has no respect for you or your family. Olivia tensed. I'm not saying you were wrong, Dad. It's just I really need your support right now, and not just morally. How much? I asked her straight out. She named an amount that made me raise my eyebrows. It was too much for an emergency. For what exactly? Well, for one thing, a lawyer. A good one. Second, I want to rent an apartment downtown. This house is too far from my work. And then I need to update my closet, get my confidence back after everything that's happened. You realize how important it is to look successful in my field. I looked at my daughter carefully. In her eyes, I saw not remorse or gratitude, but calculation. She came to me not because she realized the value of our relationship, but because she needed financial support. And she was using our family ties as a tool to get that support, just as Camden had once planned to use me. I'll help you with a lawyer, I said after a pause, and you can live here until you get back on your feet. There's plenty of room in the house, and I'll be glad of your company. Her face changed to one of disappointment. Papa, you don't understand. I can't live here. It's so far away from everything. And besides, it needs space to start a new life. You can start a new life from here. It's a good, solid house and it's always open to you. And the money? She wouldn't budge. I need money to get back on my feet. I sighed. Olivia, I'm willing to help you with the essentials, but I won't give you a large sum of money without a specific purpose. It won't help you in the long run. It won't? Her voice has become harsh. What do you think it will do? Living in this old house like you, wearing the same clothes for years, saving every dime you've, even though you have millions in your bank accounts. It's not about money, I said firmly. It's about values, Dot. It's about what's really important in life. And apparently, you haven't learned your lessons from this Camden thing. She stood up, clenching her fists. You and your moralizing again. I thought. You'd be glad I'd finally seen Camden's true colors, that you'd be there for me in my time of need. And you're trying to control me again. I'm not controlling you, Olivia, I said calmly. I'm offering you help, a roof over your head, and support with legal expenses, but I won't fund a lifestyle that, as you've just seen, leads nowhere. It's my choice, she exclaimed. My life. Why can't you just help me without all these conditions and moral lessons? I stood up and looked her in the eye. Because I see that you came here not out of a desire to repair our relationship, but out of necessity, not out of remorse or understanding, but out of financial concerns. And if I just give you the money, nothing will change. You'll leave again. You'll find another Camden, and you'll do it all over again. She turned away, and I realized I'd hit the mark. You're not being fair, she said quietly. I'm really sorry for the way I've treated you all these years, for not standing up for you at feuding. I believe part of you is truly sorry, I replied. But another part is still clinging to the values that got you into this situation. The belief that external success, status, and connections are more important than honesty, integrity, and real relationships. Olivia was silent, and I could see the struggle on her face. Then she took a deep breath and looked at me with cold determination. You know what, Dad? You're right. I came to you for the money because I knew you wouldn't say no to your own daughter, especially when it turns out you were right about my husband. Her candor surprised me, but it also made me respect her. At least she stopped pretending. I appreciate your honesty, I said, and my offer still stands. You can stay here as long as you need to. I'll help you with your lawyer, but I can't do more than that. Not because I don't love you, but because it wouldn't be real help. You're so stubborn. She shook her head. You always know best what's right and what's wrong. You never compromise. Not on principle. I agreed, Dot, and that's why I've been able to live a life I'm not ashamed of, build a career I'm proud of, and raise a daughter who, despite our differences, wasn't afraid to leave the man who'd raised his hand on her. Something in my words Cimento hurt her. For a moment, something like understanding flashed in her eyes, but then she shut down again. Okay, she said, heading for the exit. Thank you for the moral support. I'll be fine on my own. Olivia, I followed her. Don't leave like that. My offer still stands. You can always come home. She stopped at the door and turned to me. You know what the saddest part is, Dad? You really believe you're doing the right thing, that your callousness is caring, that your stubbornness is integrity, and you believe that your desire for status and external success is ambition, I replied. That using people is networking, that the pursuit of money is self-actualization. We looked at each other and I saw the same adamancy in her eyes that I saw in me own. The apple of the tree, as they say. Goodbye, Daddy, she said at last. I hope you will be happy in your principled rightness. She walked out without looking back. I heard the engine start, the crunch of gravel under her wheels as she pulled out of the driveway, and then there was silence. It went back into the living room and sat in my chair. Feeling strangely empty, I'd done what I thought was right with both Camden and Olivia. I'd shown her husband's true colors, offered to help her, but on my own terms. I didn't go against my principles. Didn't agree to fund a lifestyle I considered empty and meaningless. But the price was high. I had lost my daughter for good, the only close person I had left. Was I right? Were my principles worth the price? I looked at Eleanor's picture on the mantelpiece. She was smiling, her soft, understanding smile as if to say, "You did the right thing, Hector. You can't give up your values, even for the sake of those you love, especially for their sake." Outside the window, dusk was settling in. I sat in the silence of my home, the house I had built with my own hands, where I had lived for over 40 years, raised my daughter, loved my wife. A house full of memories, traditions, and values that I had not betrayed no matter what. I felt no triumph or satisfaction at my victory over Camden. No pride in not giving in to Olivia's demands. Only the quiet certainty that I'd stayed true to myself, to his principles, what I'd always believed in. Olivia was right about one thing. I am stubborn. But that stubbornness has helped me get through life with my head held high. Helped me build a career I'm proud of and a reputation that's respected. Helped me stand up and walk away with dignity when I was publicly humiliated at my only daughter's wedding. And if the price of that loyalty to myself is loneliness and old age, well, I'm willing to pay it because compromise on principle always leads to a loss of self-respect. And without it, there is no true love, no true friendship, no true life. Perhaps someday Olivia will realize that. Perhaps life will still teach her lessons that will help her see the value of what I was trying to impart to her. Or maybe it won't. It's her path, her choice. I can't walk it for her. I can only hope that somewhere in the back of her mind, she remembers the values that Eleanor and I tried to instill in her, and that one day those seeds will sprout, helping her find not ostentatious success, but true happiness. In the meantime, I'll move in. Gardening, counseling young engineers, seeing friends, and keep Theodore open in case she ever comes back. Not for money or status, but for what really matters: love, understanding, and acceptance. A real family.